Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Ground Level Theology. With me is my co host, Dave Hoffman. Dave, welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Did you hear about today's episode?
I did. Can you believe it?
Oh my goodness. You got to pray for this one, man.
I know.
That's the only
Wait.
reason why I'm telling you right now.
Well, who did you hear it from? Because I heard we
You
were talking about.
know, I heard it from my circles who told me to pray about it, so I'm telling you now because I need you
So
to
I
pray
can
about
pray about.
this. Yeah.
Okay. What are we praying about?
We're
Is it
talking
a really
about
big sin?
gossip over here, people. We're talking
Oh,
about
gossip.
gossip.
Oh, no wonder. Yeah, we got to pray for that.
Yeah, today's episode is about gossip, that tricky source that is at every single church, and yet no one knows, or everyone knows who it is.
Hmm. Yeah. If you don't know who it is, it might be you.
Yeah, or it
Or
might
you
be
do know.
about you.
Yeah, or it might be. Yeah, exactly. Oh, gosh.
So
Man.
yeah, we gotta talk about gossip today, folks. We gotta talk about gossip. It's one of those weird things because when we talk about gossip, gossip almost seems like a subject that, like, the word is almost archaic. We don't really talk about it. We don't really call it out. So it's sort of like a boogeyman word.
Mhm.
But folks, I think through this podcast you're gonna find out a little bit more that you might have been engaging in gossip.
Oh no, like I already know I've been an offender. I know, like when we were going through these notes and looking at the scriptures, it's like we need to talk about it. And I think every person has done it
Yeah,
at some point in time. We just don't want to be good at it. And we don't want to make a
right.
habit of it.
And I definitely hope that we don't engage in any of it in this episode.
Yeah, like I'm trying to repent, like Lord, forgive me now,
Right,
because that's not the intention.
right. Well, all right, Dave. I'm gonna go ahead and give this one out to you to start us off.
All right, okay. We've talked about a whole bunch of topics, and every time we introduce a topic, we want to do one of two things. Well,
Yeah,
we want to do both. We like to define our terms, and we like to show people where the Bible talks about it.
right,
So like what does the Bible say about debt? What does the Bible say about prayer? And then we want to know what we're actually looking for in the Bible. We
right.
want to know what we're looking up. And so for us, if we're going to talk about gossip, then what does the Bible say about gossip?
Hmm.
Uh, One of the interesting things I found is that it's not necessarily one spot that you can go to in the Bible that just like don't be a gossip. Like you can't go to the Ten Commandments and says, thou shalt not be a gossip.
Right.
Okay, it talks about lying, talks about being a murderer, but what about gossip? It, but we can't help but feel like it's wrong. It's got to be talked about somewhere. And what's interesting, so the Bible doesn't necessarily call it out or give one specific definition in one spot. Like if you were like justification by faith alone, and exactly like, oh yeah, that's Romans,
Right.
or really any of Paul. uh, but it actually it's more systematic. It actually describes gossip as a whole. It really calls it out when it's in action. It calls it out when it's actually happening, as opposed to just giving the theory
Yeah,
behind
it's
something.
it's one of those real time offenses.
Correct. Like it's not really, yeah, until like you when you see it. It's like, stop. Like that's it. Like that's what you did just there. Don't do that. And it's really a character quality.
Hmm.
It's an adjective. You don't want to. It can be, well, or substantival adjective. It can be used as an. Sorry, we're getting onto the grammatical stuff, but it can be used. Gossip is like you can be a gossip, or you are someone like she's a gossip. He's a gossip. It describes you. It describes the character of the person participating in that sin. And so it's really used more to describe a kind of person than just
Hmm.
a pattern of communication. So it's more than just like, hey, they're talking and they're gossiping. as opposed, it's more of a, hey, those two people talking are gossips.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's just like, quick caveat. So what gossip really is, and you got to know what gossip is so you know what to be looking for in the scriptures. Uh, and this, get ready, like this, you can look this up online too. Webster, they haven't changed this definition yet. So it's information that's shared about an absent third party. And no, like, look how, like, the generality of this
Yeah.
definition. Like, gossip is information shared about an absent third party.
It almost seems way too broad, you know?
Like, it
It's
says, like, any information, like, if that person's not there to say anything about them would be gossip.
or even like if you're working at an office and you're like, "Hey,
Did you get
uh
that email from so and so?
yeah, or like, "Hey, the boss said that he wants this report by, this time."
Yeah, you said something about the boss.
Yeah, you said something about him, and so you're gossiping right now. It's like, no, I'm really just communicating information. That's
Yeah,
that's really interesting that like they have that as the definition when it's just so like it's too broad.
yeah,
It's plainly too broad to encapsulate what gossip really is.
right. And so, if I had to, dare I say, disagree with Webster's or Merriam-Webster, sorry, Miriam. I'm just kidding. That's the last name, everybody.
Saint Merriam-Webster, you are disagreeing with?
Don't pray to Merriam. Okay. Oh gosh. I think a better, maybe, and I'm not trying to be like I know it all, but a better definition, I really do see it. Gossip differs from just like our tendency to talk about other people, like just in general, because they're
Yeah,
not around, because we're not omnipresent.
right,
It really does. It focuses more on the negative information that's
right.
used to demean a person. It's really like when you try and you like being the bearer of bad news behind someone's back out of a
Hmm.
bad heart. Like, it makes you happy when you can kind of spill the tea on
Right.
someone. That's messed up, man.
Yeah. I mean, that certainly is it. It definitely has that negative connotation because when you're spreading like, "Hey, did you know so and so got a promotion?" Like that's awesome. He's doing really well for himself. That's not really gossip, because it's
No,
like that's just spreading good news.
like praise, like woohoo, like we're so proud of you. Yeah.
But it's like, "Hey, did you hear so and so fell back into alcoholism?"
Yeah, do you see
You
him at
know?
the office Christmas party last week?
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Did you
he's
hear
gonna
what
run
those two are up to? Like their marriage is on the
copy room.
rocks. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it really definitely has that negative side to it, and it's almost like I'm just sort of like adding on here. It's almost like I feel like the gossiper almost does this in a way to where they probably feel like they're elevating themselves. Like, do you see
Yeah.
like how bad they're doing? Like, oh, thank God we're not like that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, exactly. And,
Right.
oh, and it's, and I wanted to hit on that because it really does
Hmm.
focus more on the negative, the bearer of bad news. But here's the caveat, and I want to bring this up because a lot of people will be like, I don't want to confuse gossip and slander.
Yeah.
Okay, they go closely together because they both are revolve around speech, what you say out of your mouth, what you communicate.
Right.
And there's a slight difference, but a difference in that slander is making a false statement
Hmm.
that damages someone's reputation. It's lying about someone to try to, get other people to view them in a negative light. And it's very vicious because a gossip could feel righteous or feel in the right. Like, I didn't lie to you. Like, what do you do with that information, whether it's positive or negative? Like, well, I'm not lying.
Yeah.
Like, that's the scare, like the slippery slope of the gossip, where it's not just talking about people in general, but it's And it's not saying you're slanderous that you give a false statement, but it's like whether it's true or not, is what you're saying, to make people praise that person, see them as the image bearer of God, as an image bearer of God, to people want to be around them, or like you said earlier, like, or you're using it to, promote yourself, get
Yeah.
ahead, and to be able to feel better about yourself, and exploiting other people's misfortunes, whether they're real or not.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny, but like gossip is, yeah, it does have that sort of effect of like I want to spread this negative thing about this person, whether because I don't like them or because it makes me feel better or more important. But with slander, it's that negative. It's something that was recently used, whether it's gossip or slander, was like, I think it's Ron DeSantis is wearing like things in his soul, so he's a little bit taller. It's like
Right.
that could be slander.
If it's false, right.
Yeah, if it's
And
false.
if
Certainly slander if I was to say here on this podcast, did you know Pastor Dave Hoffman actually puts slips in his so that he can be taller because he's actually a 5 foot man, right? He gets those 1 foot 4 inch inserts.
Okay, yeah. That way I can go from 6'4" to 6'6".
Yeah.
So funny.
And folks, for you guys that don't know, he is very tall. He's as I always say, he's the man that I look up to, and I'm a 6'2" man. So it's certainly slander to say that. And you can kind of see with that hyperbole, it's a false statement. It's a lie that I'm trying to spread about that person.
Right. And I'm trying to give like an example of like I could be like, like I could talk to my wife. I'm talking to Amber. Hey Amber, Mike's getting married this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Not gossip, not slander. That's information.
Yeah.
Yeah, my buddy Mike is getting married this weekend. We should be excited.
Yeah.
All right. Slander would be Mike's a dummy and Candace shouldn't marry him.
Yeah, or like,
because you're not a dummy.
Or like, I think Mike is getting married. I heard he cheated on her. It's like, that's just slander.
Like that is slander because you definitely. Oh gosh, that'd be like.
I've never done that. But like, it's for the purpose of essentially defaming me. Is just like you're spreading false information, probably to even hurt the chances of the marriage. It's like slander. Slander is one of those like. It's like a knife almost. Slander is made to hurt. It's made to penetrate.
And I'm trying to and I'm not trying to gossip about you, right? Like it's for the sake of the example.
Right.
It could bear a bad news. Let's say it's like, it could be like, oh, well, I'm happy for Mike that he found someone to marry him because I don't know who would want to watch that many scary movies with someone.
Right.
And do you see the tone? Like true statement because she's still marrying you, and you like scary movies. Mm-hmm. But I'm talking to someone where just the tone. Yeah. And the information, I want them to think differently about you and think differently about Candace. Because it's think bad about Mike because he watched scary movies. Think bad about Candace because she would want to be with someone that watches scary. Okay, everyone get the example.
Well, it's sort of funny too because with the good news thing aspect, we did have someone that sort of participated in a sort of like a gossip for us with our wedding, with our engagement announcement. We were keeping it. This was sort of like unique, right? An engagement announcement is really unique because we know.
Are you gossiping about them, or is this just information? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I'm anonymizing this to protect 100%. Them. And so what happened was with particularly with an engagement, and this happens a lot. So folks, this happens a lot in general because you generally want to spread good news. But one of the things about an engagement is also sometimes the couple wants actually to dispense the information themselves. One negative example, I'll say this, is there was a couple, and I learned from them. This was, I think, a pastor who knew a couple, and so there's no way I would know them. But he just said this, that they had, I think that's how I know this. Anyways, they had shared their engagement on Facebook, and it just blew up. Obviously, all their friends were on there and stuff. And so they really felt, full. They got to like enjoy all the comments, all the likes, all the love that were shared. But where they felt robbed was when they finally got to see their friends and go out on, lunch date or something. It's like they didn't have that to be able to dispel it anymore. It was already out. So it was kind of like they got it in one go. They felt like they kind of robbed themselves. Well, engaged couples, they like to have that, I'm going to go tell this person, I'm going to go tell this person. And so when you get told, hey, I'm engaged, it's something you kind of want to reserve unless you see that they've been posting it. And then at that
Hmm.
point, it's like, okay, it's freely open. Well, Candace and I, we've been really reserved in our engagement. In fact, we had it really clamped down because we wanted to keep away from that.
Right.
Going on, and unfortunately one person had heard it, and they spread the good news out to people
Oh
that
man.
we wanted to tell ourselves. Luckily, we had already dispensed it among most of the people, but some damage was done. And so that was gossip, right?
Mm.
Because they wanted to be able to have that, I
Like
have
I
this
want to tell you.
information. Yeah, I want
Mm.
to. Um, and that sort of has that negative thing because they wanted to rob
Mm.
us of that joy rather than, and have it for themselves. And there are moments like that as well. And I think that's just one example of where the rubber meets the road, in which there's sort of this. What I'm trying to draw out here with this example is that the heart of the individual is sometimes not on the dispensing of the information on behalf of the other, but rather for the thrill or the satisfaction that they get in telling you the information.
Hmm.
And that's the negative, in that it's like I feel better because I have information that you didn't, and so
Mm.
I get to tell you this. And so that's kind of where some of this gossip really gets kind of terrible.
Yeah. Oh, and especially like family dynamics.
Hmm.
There's nothing worse than like, even like parents or like other family members, and they come up to you going, "How come you didn't tell me?" Blah blah blah. I don't know if you
Yeah.
ever had that happen to you, where it's like, "How come you didn't tell me?" And it's like, "Well, if I didn't tell you, how do you know?"
Right.
uh,
Well,
and
how
it's
do
kind of
you
like, well,
know
who
if
did
I
I
didn't tell
talk
you?
to? Yeah, like who
Yeah.
did I talk to? And it might not even been bad information. Like I'm keeping something from you, but maybe like, to not worry you, or maybe it doesn't pertain to you. Ever
Yeah.
think of that? Uh, and I've seen that happen, and I really appreciate that example. Not to toot my own horn, but I'm pretty sure I asked you for permission anytime. Like, and like, you can
It
read the
was
room.
you. I'm calling
Oh
you out.
yeah,
No, I'm just kidding.
yeah. I know. Oh, you, David, you are the man. Just like, uh, yeah,
Nah.
but like, it's always good. It's like, hey, you know what? They'll post on Facebook when they want to post on Facebook. They'll
Hmm.
tell, like, I'm like, he told me. I'm gonna be honored that he told me when he told me.
Yeah.
Like, and just enjoy that, like,
Yeah.
or just leave it at that. Like, and then we always joke around. It's like, oh, okay, Mike knows if he tells me within reason, my wife's probably gonna know. Like,
Yeah.
it really
It
is interesting, like a husband and a wife relationship. Uh,
That
plus,
was the funny thing too. We
you
we
told me too,
told
so
them
I could
in
plan.
couples.
Yeah,
So I remember when I told Ben, who's been on this podcast, I told him, obviously you can tell your wife. Like
because you got to
they,
plan
yeah,
planning the
they
ceremony.
they essentially found out together.
Yeah,
And then as we told in sets of couples. So I was like, hey, I would probably be the one texting the guy, and then I would
yeah,
tell him that, you can tell your wife, and Candace would probably be texting her.
yeah, yeah,
Because
100%.
we went, like I said, we went through together and we started texting people.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think that's one of the things also, is like if you're going to dispense of information, and you don't want the wife to know, kind of make that known.
Please,
It should be at least a default that if someone's
like
giving
clear
you
defiance.
information, you should hold on to that yourself.
Yeah.
But you should also make it known. It's like, yeah, you can go ahead and tell your wife,
Well,
obviously.
you were nice to me because you were like, "Hey, I'm telling you, you're gonna want to come out. Amber's gonna want to know why you're spending $500 like on a plane,
Yeah.
like on a plane ticket or something, And so it's like, can I tell her so she doesn't think I'm hiding something? Like, why'd you spend this much money on Southwest, David? It's because like thankfully it's like, hey, I'm gonna give you guys time. Like, I'm
Hmm.
telling you, and we're best friends. Like, that's the other thing. Like, I just
Yeah.
kind of, I was thankful that I was just like, oh, I'm one of the first people, first few people that you would want to know. And so
Hmm.
and then, which is why it would be backstabbing. Like I would see it as that if I like, hey, this is my best buddy, let me violate his trust so easily by like I'm just gonna tell the world. That's not my
Yeah.
place. It's your place. Enjoy it.
And one of
And
the
I know how it
interesting
felt
things
with
about
mine.
that too, though, is as I've been releasing information like that, even
I also ask. I ask so much too
yeah,
because
well, I just
I
think
like prod at you.
yeah, I just think is like stuff like this comes up, or even like less important information when I
Yeah.
ask someone and then I tell them like, oh, keep this between you and me, or something, and I see that maybe their wife does know and that was something really important, or I find out that someone else knows. I now know that that person is no longer trustworthy for my
hmm
information,
For
right?
certain, at
And
least certain
so
like it's like I don't mind this getting out. I guess I could tell him, but like
yeah,
now you know. Now you know you like you just now you know the person.
right.
Like
And
gossip's like
so
the person.
every single time that I give information is an opportunity for me to weed out, and it's like,
Hmm.
but I also know with people like you, people like Ben, and people that I have surrounding
I
me,
knocked over my mic. I'm like,
yeah,
so
and
touched.
and close people, I know that
Yeah.
they will keep the information that I've asked them to keep
Gosh, the
secret.
last thing I
Yeah,
do till I ride or die.
right.
um, that, and that, gosh, and that's like,
Because we're
and
not gossipers.
yeah, like you're not like, and there's nothing like. And I'm thankful because like there have been times where I was like, where you get like hopefully like you don't want it to be trial and error, but like it is one of those things where you do have that tough love, where like the first few brothers or sisters where you might do it, you hope that they're the ones that don't feed into it and go like,
Right.
hey, wait, you know what? This sounds like, and especially if you can like kind of catch it. Hey, I think you're about to share something with me that if that person was here,
Right.
that you wouldn't want to share it. So why are you telling me when they're not here? Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so you
The
like
interesting thing with this subject too, though, is I mean, we're kind of talking about this right now, and we're trying to tread wisely, right? Because
yeah,
pastors can be gossips
in a sermon.
in a sermon.
So,
Yeah.
illustrations, dude. Sermon illustrations.
Illustrations have the potential to put us in some pretty precarious situations to gossip. And even now, like I said, we're trying to tread lightly. Try not to be gossip. We like to anonymize so that we can give good sermon illustrations. We like to not give flesh out people's problems to the congregation, which I've also seen by some pastors. And I've seen a pastor commonly do that. It's like,
I've
with
counseled a couple in in marital counseling and
yeah,
blah. There you
and you
go.
knew it was that week. You
Oh
know
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
cat like that's how bad.
And you like think of the young adults, and you're like, okay, who's
Yeah,
going?
I can figure this one out, and it's like
Yeah. Oh,
but we can do that as pastors as well, and so we're not exempt of this. We have to be careful of this as well.
I know. Thankfully, like I've definitely heard pastors do this with their children. I think really with their spouses and their children, their wives and their children, any family things. Like I'll ask Amber for permission. Just like this is not part of like the episode. I'm just like telling you, like,
Yeah.
hey, we had that argument in the car this week. Can I use that as an illustration? Like, hey, I'm willing as the pastor to admit a fault would you be willing for me to share it? Because people know we're human, and I think they're not going to be
Right.
like, how dare they ever get into an argument? But I think but it fits. But at the same time, my wife instant, like, no, I can find another illustration. I just didn't. It came up naturally and a little less work. But like, if it's a yes, then fine. But no, it doesn't matter if it, praises them, maybe not. But if it's a no, it's a
Mhm.
no.
Yeah.
And so, because there's some things where it's like, hey, you made a fantastic meal this week. Can I talk about it? And she could be like, no, I don't want you talking about like what I made you for dinner. Like,
Yeah.
even if it's harmless, she just might not want me to.
Right.
So anyway, but like, I don't want to
Oh,
go off the rails. Sorry.
true. I just wanted to add this as well.
Hmm.
With us being as pastors being able to accidentally or even just end up in the realm of gossiping. One of the things that we have to be careful of as well, not just in our sermons to gossip, because that seems like the easy one to avoid, but also like in how we speak even to our wives with regard to those we're counseling.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, it's
In
like
elders meetings, like
inf-
just information, dude.
information is regularly disclosed to us that we cannot share.
Yep.
And I've been in a position, not just with Candace, where she's asked me, who are you texting, or even like my parents. I'm literally at the dinner table with them, and they see me texting, and they'll ask, and I will say like I can't really tell you, is someone's going through something right now, right?
Hmm.
And they were like,
Yeah.
oh,
I'm
what is it?
talking
And
to
it's
one of
like
my congregants. I really was like,
I can't tell you,
Yeah.
right?
One of my
I have to kind of shut it down there. You
Yep.
cannot know who and you cannot know what it's about. But trust me that I'm having a conversation right now that needs to be had. And so
Yeah.
as pastors, we have to be like that too. And it's sort of weird to kind of encounter that for the first time
Oh
because
yeah.
it seems like, why are you being so secretive? What's this? Why am I seeing this? And it's like, well, I'm a pastor. If you came to me with your information, wouldn't you want me to not disclose
To
your
anyone and
business?
every, yeah.
Right. You know, if I'm in front of my wife or if I'm in front of my parents or if I'm in front of my best friend, it's like, wouldn't you like me to say, I'm just texting someone, can't tell you what it's about? And then that's it. Being able to shut it down in that expense, you would. And so I need to be able to do that. And so I'm blessed to have people around me that understand that because I don't want to get into gossip and I don't
Right.
want to gossip people's business.
And we want to be Christ-like. Christ knows everyone's.
Yeah.
Like this, like we think the skeletons are in the closet. The Lord knows hearts. Okay, like He's omniscient. He knows everything, and He doesn't just throw everything out in the sky for the
Yeah.
whole world to see. And He's patient with us, and so you know, and it's messed up because there are pastors that they have that shame culture. They air out the dirty laundry. I
Mhm.
heard of a pastor like, and they diss other pastors. I heard a pastor that like, and not like you're dissing, you're not trying to diss the person, and because they said something heretical, and you're like, hey, nothing against this guy, but do not believe what he just said. Like
Yeah.
that's a different. There's a difference between like others like, can you believe this pastor? He was such a pushover because he couldn't tell his elders like the bit cultural mandate. Like, you just name it like that's that tone. And so, not to go on this crazy rant, but I think we've already, man, we haven't even gotten to the Bible yet. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like the Bible's the authority, not just us. But like we've given a couple of examples, and really the takeaway from we've defined these terms is that like unlike slander, where it makes up its own secrets and it tries to broadcast them wherever they will do the most harm, they're not true, and they're really just trying to get ahead. Gossip is sneakier. It's
Yeah.
sneakier than a lie, dare I say, because it's the truth sometimes. And so gossip collects someone's secrets and passes them on to others. Information that they might not want other people to know. Not even have to be negative. Now, um, which is why I liked like we have that definition, and it was a little broad. Like I think it is mostly negative, but it
Yeah.
doesn't always have to be negative information, but maybe information the particular party didn't want disclosed yet.
Right.
And so it's sharing someone else's secrets, negative, positive, doesn't matter, passing them on to others because you want to be the bearer of the information.
Yeah. There's
And
some sense of satisfaction from that.
100%. And I want to look at the Bible, but I mean, we've already kind of teased it out too. But when after we look at what the scripture says, we can kind of talk about. So what do we do with gossip? Like, how do we combat it? But like, we talked about like a broad definition. What is the scripture? How do because you could hear someone say like, do you have authority? But it's different than we say like, what does the Bible mean by authority? You could say, someone could say, hey, I want to give you grace. What does the Bible mean by grace? And so what does the Bible mean about gossip? I think we have 4 passages. There's plenty, but we're only going to look at 4.
Let me actually just show our viewers this real quick.
Yeah. What do we got?
I have the document here on the side. Let's see if I can click the right one.
That's right. We use notes, people. We're human.
Yeah. We have notes here. You can see how many verses we have. We do have this document off to the side so that we can keep track with our conversation and not just rant.
We still rant.
We still rant, but this. Imagine how bad it would be if we didn't have a document to kind of keep us in line and our thoughts collected. But there is a lot of verses that have to do with gossip in the Bible. Major thing that the Lord does not like.
I'd say so.
Yeah, and so
even a lying tongue's an abomination to the Lord. Like that's just lying.
And we're sort of highlighting 4 passages today. Our first one is Proverbs 11:9, and I'll go ahead and pull that up. Dave, do you want to talk about this one?
I do. I really like it. I love the Bible, and it's in the Bible, so I like it. No, I'm sorry. I that was me being mean. That's not gossip, not slander. I was just being mean to my buddy, which is not okay. I know. What do you always? Friends are just jerks you get over. It shouldn't be that way. I'm sorry. I love Proverbs. Proverbs, we know some of them have been written by Solomon, not all of them, but it's wisdom, right? Wisdom literature. And I think the whole counsel of God, the whole Bible is wisdom. But this is a very specific genre, and it really calls out, I think when we emphasized here where the gossip is not just, hey, you're gossiping. It's not just a verb. It's an adjective. It describes a kind of person. And we learn in Proverbs 11:9, if you want to pull that up, it's going to talk about communication, what we say with our mouths, the types of things Christians should not say, the content that should never come out of their mouth, and kind of have that comparison. And so we learn in verse 9, even verse 8, it talks about how the righteous is delivered from trouble, but the wicked walks into it instead. And then it kind of talks about the mouth of the wicked person. Verse 9, with his mouth, the godless man would destroy his neighbor, but by knowledge, the righteous are delivered. When it goes well with the righteous, the city rejoices, and when the wicked perish, there are shouts of gladness. Verse 11, by the blessing of the upright, a city is exalted, but by the mouth of the wicked it is overthrown. Whoever belittles his neighbor lacks sense, but a man of understanding remains silent. Whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets, but he who is trustworthy in spirit keeps a thing covered.
Wow.
Like wise words, right?
Yeah.
Words well spoken.
It's proverbial almost.
It is proverbial. And just like, I think just a few things to tease out, right? Where we can just kind of recognize, like, there's a comparison, right? Made between righteous people and wicked people.
Right.
Wicked people, the godless man, the mouth of the godless man, destroys his neighbor. should Christians destroy their neighbor? No, right? Like
No.
Paul tells us that we are supposed to build one another up, not tear each other down, whether the information's true or false. If the information's true, bear your neighbor up, not tear him down.
Yeah, and it almost doesn't even make sense to tear down your neighbor because he's the one that lives next to you. It's
Yeah,
like
he's my buddy.
it's essentially messing up the environment that you live in. He's right next to you. You know, do you
Yeah,
want to live the rest of your life? Because remember, your neighbor, your where you live is your allotted inheritance. So we're talking, do you want to mess up the relationship for an entire lineage or for a time that is the rest of your life?
right. Like, you know how many friendships, bridges that have been burned, friendships that have been ruined because of things that have been said or not said. But like really things said that why like I trusted you, or like of all people,
Mhm.
like you feel like a like Brutus, like backstab, like I trusted you, like you were my confidant, like of all people to respect me and to and then you're the one that's been like sounding the horn.
Yeah.
It's devastating. Like and I even like you said the neighbor like idea of like living close in proximity. Like remember it goes into that city language, right?
Mhm.
Of like, hey, the blessing of the upright, the city's exalted, but the mouth of the wicked overthrows the city.
Yeah.
Like you're destroying where you live, your life, like your community is destroyed with how you communicate.
It's sort of like the a modern contemporary like equivalent of that would be the, back when we had loose lips sink ships.
Oh, there you go.
It's like
Yeah, yeah.
if you tell secrets, it's going to dispense out to our enemies. Well, with this, it's like, you can destroy a city from within without weapons, and
Mm,
gossip can do that, and it can ruin the city that you're in. That is, it can ruin it even for you who live in it.
I
Uh,
know. Oh, you're
yeah,
hurting
so
yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. You're
exactly.
just hurting yourself because and the proverb like I mean straightforward like I mean such straightforward language as wisdom literature usually is. It's not trying to all be like some random fortune cookie. You like what the heck does that mean? But
Yeah,
this is clear cut. Like, hey, the one who belittles his neighbor lacks sense.
exactly.
A man of understanding, though, he remains silent. He knows what information is his to disclose and what's not. Slanderers, they reveal secrets. But this is why, Mike, I value what you said about me and our friendship. We're like, but he who is trustworthy in spirit keeps a thing covered.
Hmm.
This is not like I got your back. Hey, if you had to commit a murder, you're gonna call me. And then and then I can keep the secret covered, right?
Right.
It's the hey, I can trust this person. I can trust this individual because he knows what is, his story to tell and what isn't.
Right.
You know, positive news, definitely not negative. Like, let's just give the benefit of the doubt. Let's say it's always positive all the time. Like, it's still like, hey, this is their engagement, not mine. I had
Right.
mine. Let them have their moment. Let's celebrate with them when they're ready to celebrate with everybody.
Yeah.
You know,
I
I don't
mean,
know.
we could even get even a bit more on to the ground. I mean, with friends, what are they? But sometimes your friends
Sure
are
should
the
get
people
over it.
that you very much rant to and try and work your problems through. You're like, dude, here's a hypothetical. Like, dude, I went on a date. She seems real nice. We have all the right values. I'm just not sure about the feeling. She said a couple off-color jokes.
Mm,
But I think she's really attractive. We seem to get along. I don't know. Like I'm just kind of thinking it through, and then you as a friend, you can be like, well, you seem to have this sort of this feeling about her. This is kind of the way you're talking. Like
like,
sometimes
yeah.
you need your friend, you need someone to talk to kind of converse and think through things with. And so
Right.
if you're just thinking through and you're just or maybe a different example is, oh, me and my wife, we have this fight, and it's been one fight after another, and we've been doing this for months, and I'm just like, I'm sick of it. I feel like I just want a divorce at this point. I've really been thinking about it, bro. And you're just like, dude, you shouldn't feel like that. You don't want a divorce. You can work through it. It's gonna be tough. You gotta kind of buckle down on this. Just remember your commitments. And then it's going to be a lot harder, but you're going to need to communicate a lot more and all this other stuff. And so you are taking the raw emotions and thoughts and trying to help me work through it, right? Maybe even from an angle I don't see. Now imagine if I said that, right? If I said, I'm having all this trouble, we've been fighting nonstop. It's been like half a year of just that. I'm thinking about divorcing, and then you took that and you said it to your wife and you said it to someone else, and that kind of dispelled. And then
I tell my
later,
church, be praying for my buddy Mike.
yeah, and then I
Oh.
decide because I'm still working through it. I'm like, you know what? I'm overblown. I saw this movie, it was a Hallmark movie, and this guy was going through the same thing, but he left. He just, and I see it was such a dumb mistake of a move. What he should have done is this. And then now I have decided that what I need to do, buckle down, recommit myself or recommit myself to the commitment I had already made, and
Hmm.
then work through it, which is a harder route. And then my wife hears that I want a divorce based on the raw thoughts that I was still thinking. It's like,
Yeah, dude.
so
It's like,
now,
no.
yeah, maybe
Yeah.
maybe that actually breaks up the relationship. And that is because
Mm.
someone had gossip. They had set out the raw thoughts that I was working through with my friend, and it was unfortunately my friend that released them when he was not supposed to, right? He was supposed to be there to help me work through it. Um, so there's kind of like that gossip that can happen even through that, and it's like that's really
Mm.
where
Dude.
some
Oh.
rubber meets the road is sometimes that
Oh
information
gosh.
that's dispensed is true at the time and is no longer true.
Dude, that got me thinking. Um, I'm so sorry. Like, y'all, this is
Absolutely.
raw. Here we go.
Yeah.
Like, you get the real deal because it like you don't. People, welcome to reality.
Hmm.
You we don't ever want to feel like we keep anything from our spouses.
Right.
Okay, and that is the. It's not just like that's the goal. That's a false ideal. Like that is the ideal. That is the goal. I can share anything with Amber, but just because I can doesn't mean I should
Hmm.
all the time. If it could overwhelm her or just beat a dead horse or just
Yeah.
here I'll be vulnerable. Like okay, I'm a straight man. I find women attractive.
Right.
I don't like the fact that I could have a lustful thought, and I don't like that I still have struggle with a sin nature
Hmm.
that doesn't want to only be committed to one woman all of the time. Okay?
Right.
Put that out there. I'm supposed to. And Amber's great about making sure that I only worry about her. She's a fantastic wife.
Right. Right. Right.
But like being real though,
Hmm.
like my wife would not want to hear every single time I might like thought I saw another woman and thought they were attractive.
Yeah.
Even if it was just one.
Or
Like
even just something more
like
more like uh I mean, it could still be
trivial.
really
I'm just
detrimental,
yeah.
but it's just like, hey, I don't really like the way you just cooked this.
Like oh like yeah,
Like it,
does this dress make me look fat?
like
You know?
yeah,
Like you don't answer that like right? It's like and even if you or like what you said it's the dress's fault, right? If you don't
Mhm.
like the if it doesn't fit well, it's the dress. It's
Right.
like it's like no, but I like this one more. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? And then you kind of like
Right.
now I joke around everybody because if you know if you know my wife, she looks like a model. Okay, um,
Mhm.
she's
Sure.
fantastic. You would never know she had triplets. Uh,
Right.
anyway, so you don't disclose every little thing all of the time. And her with me, we because we would both just be discouraged, little balls of discouragement all the time, and then we just Lord, where are you? You got to help us. Um, no, but like that's like one of those things where all of that to say, I don't say gossip between spouses, but like things that have been discussed between spouses, imagine. Sorry, I'm so sorry, everybody. Like, kind of wipe that. Imagine you got a text from me, Mike,
Hmm.
about how Candace is feeling.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to think of I've heard like of married couples. I'm not trying to gossip now too, information. But like yeah, like where you find out information about your spouse from someone else,
Right.
you know, and it's just
Yeah.
like, hey, they're my spouse. They share everything with me. And even the things that like we don't have to share everything. Like there's nothing worse than feeling like, hey, I'm closer with your wife than you are. I know
Right.
her better than you do.
Yeah.
Or your wife needs me, or maybe the friend feels like they're doing a favor, but like I need to communicate this to you because apparently your wife's been doing it and you're not listening to her.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
as
That's.
a, like, I'm thinking like friend to friend confidant kind of thing, where it's like
Yeah.
you tell me something and I go, hey Candace, you need to respect Mike, or like imagine. I'm trying to think of like something vague, like she does
Yeah.
respect you. So, but I'm trying to think of like you were just venting. Maybe she was having a bad day. You're having a bad day, you know, and it's like you're just talking to me as a buddy, and then I feel like I need to be the savior that
Yeah.
like gets
The
can't.
interesting thing about that though is we've been seeing a lot of it, people gossiping out in social media because social media has allowed it to
Mm,
reach a further audience. We see a
yeah.
lot of that on TikTok and stuff with what we call now a genre, unfortunately, and you could look it up. It's a partner shaming. And
Yeah. Oh
uh,
yeah.
a lot of men are also doing this as well, but I've noticed particularly women do this the
Mm,
most. And men have, like I said, men have done it too, but it's mostly them that started this trend. Of my husband doesn't do this, so look at this, and they're showing videos like here's his clothes on the floor, here's the laundry, here's the
mm,
dishes, and here's all this other stuff, and then people are just flooding comments with like, you should divorce him, he's terrible, he's just all the most
a
terrible
sack of
things.
poo. Like yeah, I mean
Yeah,
they say everything,
and
dude.
they like they
Like
either they let that happen and they're hearting and they're just saying like, oh, you know it, and all this other stuff, and maybe they're doing a series through this because they get a lot of follows and views through that, so they're profiting off of the gossip that is taking place on social media. Meanwhile, the husband doesn't know, and one of two
oof.
things happens once the husband does find out, or once it gets a little bit too vile, then she will actually confront the audience and say, well, hey, you know what? You haven't seen all the things that he does do and all this other stuff. You guys got to really calm down and all this other stuff. Or the man comes out and defends himself, and then all of a sudden, now
Flips the script and
she's
does it with
got
her.
egg on her face because now there's the other side of the story and he's not so vile. And so yeah, that's sort of where some of that gossip is actually, as you were saying, is happening in the disclosing of it to another, but here we have it actually happening in social media, and now it's one person to the world, and the one person that doesn't know is the significant other, and it's a terrible
Mm,
thing to see because I mean very often one of the viewers will actually find the husband's account and link him to it, so he does find out. And so
mm,
that's a horrible trend, but it's a trend that I've seen on partner shaming with TikTok, and so you do see gossiping happen a lot in that side as well. And so yeah, you can really disclose that to someone, and then they give that information to someone else, and then you have something like
yeah.
that come up.
And I think, well, and that's why, like, I think, and this really goes well with our next example in Matthew chapter 12. This is when Jesus talks about interesting example to talk about gossip, where it's like, you can tell a tree by the fruit it bears. I had a
Yeah.
person who, wonderful coworker. This was before I was in ministry. I had other jobs, obviously, through college and stuff. So I was with a coworker, and it's like they were baiting me. They wanted me to talk bad about my significant other. Like, Dave, hey, like, come on, what's Amber really like? Like, you can be honest with me, Like, you're not in front of her parents. You don't have to like schmooze or like, like just be like, like who are you really stuck with? you
Hmm.
know? And it's like, and they're trying to like paint this picture of like this camaraderie and like we can be open and honest and just, vent. And it's like, this isn't vent. Like you want me to complain about my significant other to
Yeah.
you, and usually so they don't feel bad about their complaining about their.
Yeah.
It's like, but I'm like,
It's
it's like
a
I'm not going to give into that.
commiseration
Yeah,
party.
commiserate. Yeah, misery loves company.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it does. And I think Matthew chapter 12,
Yep.
verses
I have
30
it
through
pulled
30,
up here.
like flies in the face of that. I'm a Christian, right? That's not what Christians do. And I'm not perfect, but when you know the word, you can apply the word and you have a fighting chance. Um, and so, this is a great passage. If you here, you read this one, Mike. You got this. I've
Alrighty,
been
sounds
talking.
good. We are here in Matthew 12:33 through 37. He's already given us the context, so I'll just go ahead and read here at 33 and you can follow along. It says, either make the tree good and its fruit good, or make the tree bad and its fruit bad. For the tree is known by its fruit. You brood of vipers, how
Nice.
can you speak good when you are evil? For out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. The good person out of his good treasures brings forth good, and the evil person out of his evil treasure brings forth evil. I tell you, on the day of judgment, people will give an account for every careless word they speak. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. Oh my goodness, Dave. That is not
Dude,
good for the person that does gossip.
dude, Jesus's words. This is from the creator,
Hmm.
right? Jesus is our creator. He gave us lips to open, teeth for our tongues to press against, to be able to say the letter D and the letter T.
Yeah.
Okay? And he gave us hearts and minds, and he made us in his image. So he cares very much about, he gave us language that was to be used to praise him. Not to, and I'm jumping ahead now because it's like also what James kind of gets into, right? Where it's like, hey, uh,
Let's just jump into
just
that
do
then.
that too. Like
Yeah,
do
let's bring
that so
that
I
up.
can highlight this. Um,
I'll read that as well. We are in
good.
James 3, 2 through 5, and it says, for we all stumble in many ways, and if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man, able also to bridle his whole body. If we put bits into the mouths of horses so that they obey us, we guide their whole bodies as well. Look at the ships also. Though they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are guided by a very small rudder wherever the will of the pilot directs. So also the
Mm,
tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things.
oh my
How
gosh.
great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire.
Oh gosh. And it's so true. Like we can, like literally, we can set the forest of our lives on fire with one phrase sometimes. Uh, and I'm really, thinking like with what Jesus said. Um, and you read that even. Um, it's actually like a little later. James verse 9, verse 8 and verse 9. Uh, when he talks about like he calls the tongue a restless. Here, do you want to pull that up? Sorry,
Yeah, I'll
I
just pull
didn't
up the whole
tell.
chapter.
Yeah, I didn't tell Mike about this. Sorry, we're human. Um, I'll tell Amber later. Can you believe Mike? What a dummy! He can have the Bible verse up. No, you need to keep reading. Okay, don't. I don't want to say don't
All
worry
right.
about verse 6 and 7. But really, verse 8 through 10.
Alrighty,
That's even more.
I'll just read 6 and 7 real quickly and then
Fine
come
context,
back.
you know.
So how great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire, and the tongue a fire, a world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body, setting
Mm.
on fire the entire course of life, and set on fire by hell. For every kind of beast and bird, of reptile and sea creature can be tamed and has been tamed by mankind. But no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil, full of deadly poison. With it we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse people who are made in the likeness of God. From the same mouth coming blessing and cursing. My brothers, these things ought not to be so. Does a spring pour forth from the same opening both fresh and salt water? Can a fig tree, my brothers, bear olives, or a grapevine produce figs? Neither can a salt pond yield fresh water.
All right. Okay. You read something like that. And now let's go back to Matthew 12, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where Jesus is saying, like, you can tell a tree by the fruit it bears.
Yep.
You can tell if it's a salt pond or fresh water. You can tell if this is a fig tree or an olive tree, a kind person, a righteous person, or a wicked person. Okay, all by their words. Like literally, because it's, James is talking about no man can tame the tongue. The irony that with the same mouth we could praise our Lord and Father, and then at the same time, then we'll right after that. This is why I'm kind of picking like when I have like church potluck sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like right after service. It's like 30 minutes ago, we were just praising the Lord, hearing his word read and preached, singing songs and hymns and spiritual songs, giving, and just, and then now at lunchtime, we're just going to throw it all out the window, like the same mouth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
and it's like, I resound like with resonate with James, where it's like, the brothers, these things ought not to be so. You can tell a tree by the fruit it bears. We're Christians.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are we talking about these things? Out of the heart, the mouth speaks.
Yeah.
Like I've often, and this is being vulnerable, folks. Like I've had to apologize for my wife, to my wife, not for my wife. Sorry, I had to apologize for my wife. No, I had to apologize to my wife sometimes because you have to be careful. Like, I didn't mean that. I
Yeah.
didn't mean to say. It's like I've had to I am so sorry that I spoke out loud what was in my heart, and I need you to forgive my heart and
Yeah.
love me, and I'm going to pray that the Lord continues to redeem it and reshape it into a heart of flesh for him, where what I start to speak out of my heart is good things. And like, because people say what they mean and then they feel bad that they meant it.
Yeah. I think one of the like really good illustrations that I've read, I don't know if it's actually happened, it's sort of like an urban legend. I'm sure someone has done it.
Urban legend.
Yeah. But I think a really good illustration is I read something on where a teacher gave a toothpaste thing to a bunch of kids and said like, go ahead and squeeze it. And so he squeezes it and toothpaste all over the table
Yeah.
and then the
Yeah.
teacher says, all right, now put it back in. And they can't. You can't put toothpaste back into the bottle.
Right.
And so
Oh
the,
yeah.
the teacher says, those are the same things with your words. You have to be careful how you kind of put it out. It needs to be right because once it's out, you can't put it back in. And I think that's
Mhm.
just it's a really good illustration because I mean there were moments in my life where I did say things and either they weren't as crafted as I needed them to be, or they were truthful and they were hurtful, and I said them and I immediately regretted it because one of those things is that when you really see the person that you love and they're angering you and you decide to say something that you know is going to hurt them, it's truthful and you know it's going to hurt them, and it has that effect, and then you
That
realize almost
burn.
like your eyes are open. You're just like, I shouldn't have done that. You can't undo the damage. The words that you said were truthful. You meant them. You just regret them now. And I think that's a pretty deep, profound thought to kind of dwell on, because I mean, with this tree analogy that you're talking about, with
Yeah.
the tree, you'll know its fruits. Are you the type of tree that's bearing these type of fruits? Are you constantly, is your mouth running uh, faster than your feet? Um, you need to be someone who then conforms to the image of Christ. And so if you're someone that like, I really like to talk, but I constantly find myself in a zone of like gossip, in the realm of gossip, well then maybe you should be someone who starts practicing being quiet.
Yeah. Quick to hear, slow to speak,
But in all
slow to anger.
seriousness, like it
Yeah.
sounds like what I'm saying is like, oh, what you should do is just,
Sit down,
shut
shut
your
up.
mouth, but
Yeah.
it's like, no, 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 no. I'm saying just like running in something, you need to build that up. I would say challenge yourself to have like a sort of like a semi vow of silence, just
Learn yourself. Like,
challenge
not gonna joke.
challenge
Like,
yourself for 1 week to try and speak a lot less,
mm,
you know. And when you do
mm,
speak, to be very thoughtful with your words. And I wonder where you would get from there. And then the next week, challenge yourself to kind of find that balance even better. And then continue to challenge yourself to be a lot more reserved with your speech. And you will find yourself in less gossip, right? Because now you're thinking, well, this person wants to converse and I want to be silent. So how can I converse as wisely as possible with the words that I have? And you will
mm.
find yourself in less gossip. Or you might find yourself calling the other person out, right? Because maybe it's the people that you're around.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I will say this, birds of a feather. Uh, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
if you're the gossip type, you're gonna kind of find yourself around people that like to gossip as well.
Oh, and then you're competing, right? My
Right.
gossip's better
It's
than
like,
your
oh, you
gossip.
thought, did you hear about so and so? Oh no, you had, did you hear about so and so?
Oh
That's the
yeah,
real
well,
thing,
guess what? Yeah. I know, spill the beans.
Right. And
Mm,
so I would say like it's not telling you to kind of be quiet, but more of like it's a challenge. If you really do feel like you struggle with that, well, there's a challenge to issue yourself. Try and
mm,
try and give a half or a semi vow of silence in which your words that you speak need to be thought, and you can use the filter of, am I disclosing information that I shouldn't?
dude.
Yeah.
And that's well, and that right there, I think a good, that's literally a catch-all for really what verses 36 and 37 are getting at, right? Jesus loves us enough to tell us straight up, I tell you, on the day of judgment, people will give an account for every careless word they speak.
Yeah.
For by your words you will be justified, by your words you will be condemned. Now, broad, there's these verses are in a context of where he's been accused of colluding with Satan. And and he talks about like, hey, I'm Jesus, like a house against itself cannot stand, and like, hey, you're accusing me of like working with Satan, and it's like I'm the only one that can defeat him. But it's like he's calling out the Pharisees here. Um, like, hey, you be careful what you say. But, pay attention to what you're saying, because
Hmm.
you're a righteous religious person, and yet you're accusing your Messiah. You don't acknowledge me as that. but you're accusing your Messiah actually as if he's working with Satan. And out of your heart, like, and I would say they're unredeemed hearts, you're speaking out of your heart, which is unbelief in me, and you hate me.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to be held accountable for what you're saying right now. And it's going to come back to bite you unless you repent.
Right.
So I'm not trying to just be like, hey, you're a Christian and you said one bad thing, you are now, you're never going to get into heaven. I'm not saying that, because I believe Jesus has redeemed every single thought, word, and deed for us on the cross. So take heart. There's not a single sin, okay, that the blood of the Lord Jesus Christ cannot cover. If he can save me, he can save you, all of that stuff. He can save your words. But pay attention, as Mike is saying. Maybe take a vow of silence. Maybe do what James also says about being, slow to speak, quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. Watch what's coming out of your mouth. It says, no man can tame the tongue. But hey, every good ship has a captain on the rudder. Even when there's wildfires or controlled burns, there's someone that's trying to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And, fires in the right amount of heat can provide heat and safety and security. But if not checked, it can cause a lot of damage. Same for a boat. Same for y'all's tongues.
Yeah, I mean, what James is saying there with a little fire, I mean, he's really talking about a spark or an ember. And what we know, especially with us in California with the wildfires that
that's
happen
what I'm saying.
a lot,
Smokey the Bear over here.
Is a fire can jump from a chasm of where there's not a span of place where something can be lit up. It can jump based on the embers. It can start based on a cigarette butt. It can start on a spark. And so, it's like it only takes that little bit to start the fire. It only takes one word to destroy a person and even a city and a person's reputation in an entire company. Like, we can just think about how just one little thing overturns such a big thing. So too does it affect our mouths. So too does it affect our reputation. So does it affect our personality. And so too does it affect our souls, right? Because what we do to others, whether we're caught or not, it's seen by the Lord, and so it affects our souls, because as we give way to sin in our lives, we are opening sin in our lives more and more. And so we are callousing our hearts, and that's never good. And so, I do recommend that. I called it a vow of silence. Some people might feel a little bit uncomfortable with that, because that's a little bit more associated with Catholicism or even Eastern mysticism with monks and stuff. But I mean, it's a vow is just sort of like a promise or a goal. It's more of a promise, but you can just think of it as a goal. And it's achievable, right? It's like I said, think of it as a challenge. Challenge yourself to try and speak as little words as possible that week. And I know it's possible, because when I was in the 6th grade, in the 5th grade, I was really popular. I was really outgoing. I was an extrovert. In 6th grade, I knew I could be someone I've never been, because no one knew me at that school. And so I chose to be the silent kid. And I didn't speak very much at all that entire year. And it was by design. And I learned a lot, actually.
Meanwhile, I would have been like, come on, Mike. Like, you gotta be thinking something.
Oh, yeah.
You're definitely thinking.
I turned myself into an introvert. And the things that I learned during that 1 year of just trying to be as silent as possible. Like I said, I did speak, but trying to be as silent as possible. I still work off of to this day. I really got to see society. I got to see people, how they work, and I got to see some things that would change me for the rest of my life, and how I didn't want to act. And it was because I forced myself to be observant. But what I'm saying with this example, because I did that for a full year, is that you can do it. You just have to decide to do it. It's not like it's not some weird spiritual aspect or something in which you need to, I don't know, pray more for the gifts or something. It's literally just challenge yourself to not speak, and you can accomplish what you're seeking to do. Um,
Wait, you
so
mean
there's
people
that.
don't have to have something to say about everything all the time? Or interrupt them in the middle of their thought?
Right. I mean, it's harder for some people, especially when we're talking about, our extrovert brothers,
It's not gossip
um,
because I'm in front of him.
right. So, I do feel for them because where I have my struggles, our extrovert brothers have different struggles, and this is one area in which, our extroverted brothers and sisters will struggle a little bit more on this side.
Oh, especially when you have that boldness.
Mm.
Oh gosh, it's tough. Like I'm being vulnerable again. Like no, does it have to be said? And like that's like the worst question an extrovert could ask themselves because like they have the confidence and the boldness to be like everything can be said, which is not true. But I'm just saying like strictly confidence level, you're like just because you can say it doesn't mean you should. And there's people that are like because I can say it, I should. It's like
Yeah.
no, like no.
And
And
folks,
I mean I've already done it today like 3 times. I'm not even gonna lie, at least 3 times of like, and like it eats away because you're like, oh, like you never have to ask me my opinion, do you, Mike? You do it for the podcast so it transitions, but you don't have to be like, I want to know. I wonder what David thinks. Like you never
I
have to
made this
ask.
podcast so that I could
Oh, God.
confine all those to, and I'm just kidding.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like in one spot, and I'm like, yeah,
No.
no,
I did want to actually read this last verse
yeah,
real quick here,
please.
and then we can get back to this because there's a couple more examples in which gossip really meets the rubber meets the road, especially in Christian circles as well. That I do want to get
Hmm.
to. I just want to get to this as well, and this verse is sort of a point in which we shouldn't have this in our community. We should not be characterized with this, and this should be something that if we see in ourselves or if we see in our community, we would seek out to expel it, right? Because like we said, it's like a fire. It's like an ember that sparks a fire. It is detrimental. And so we are not people that are characterized by this. So I want to read 2 Corinthians 12:19 through 21. I'm going to bring it up here on the screen and then I'll read it for you. It says, have you been thinking all along that we have been defending ourselves to you? It is in the sight of God that we have been speaking in Christ, and all for your upbuilding, beloved. For I fear that perhaps when I come, I may find you not as I wish, and not that you may find me not as you wish, that perhaps there may be quarreling, jealousy, anger, hostility, slander, gossip, conceit, and disorder. I fear that when I come again, my God may humble me before you, and I may have to mourn over many of those who sinned earlier and have not repented of the impurity, sexual immorality, and sensuality that they have practiced. So, folks,
Mm.
we are not a people of that community. We need to expel that from us first and foremost and our communities because we are not people that slander or gossip. And Dave, you brought out that nuanced distinction, and here is that distinction shown in the text. They're not one thing. He says not to slander or to gossip. Those are two distinctly different things, and we should not be doing either.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
so, yeah, we're just that's not
Nailed it.
us. And so here are some things that we got to call out here in the Christian community. Dave and I used it at the very beginning
Yeah.
as sort of a
Okay.
joke, but it is absolutely, I think, the number one way in which people gossip and or slander in a Christian community, and that is using prayer as their excuse.
Yep.
Dave, I need you, just so you know, this person, they're really getting into the sin and stuff in
Like,
their life.
like the prodigal son.
Yeah, they're
It's like
they're definitely in the pig's trough. But
they're
hey,
with
I'm
stuff.
saying this so you can pray, right?
Yeah.
So you can pray for them.
Mm,
That is the
thank
number
you.
one way I think people
Yeah.
actually do it in our Christian context. They're
100.
using the prayer circle, they're using the prayer meeting, they're using prayer as sort of their piggyback for all the gossip that they can say. So long as I say that I
Mm.
want you to pray for it, I can now give you all the tea that I want.
Oh my gosh. Hey, there's a way to go to a nightclub and be a Christian. There's a way to gossip without like, you know. Okay. I'm
That's
sorry,
so
y'all.
funny.
Okay. Too soon. It's been a week, but okay. Hey, No, but like it, and it's that tone where, because we've been doing this forever. Satan's been doing this since the dawn of time. You know, hell's not that bad. Heaven's really not that great. Your sin's really not that bad. Jesus really can't be trusted. And it's like, and you end up like, it's fine. Like, and you just water down everything, where the holiness of God really doesn't mean anything, and rebelling against Him doesn't really mean anything.
Hmm.
And so I'm not gossiping. I'm just trying to pray for someone. And it's
Yeah.
and we've done this as pastors where we know people need to be prayed for, and we might know the actual issue going on. But like, even if you don't even want to do a name, but even if you do a name, be like, hey, we want to pray for the so and so family.
Hmm.
This year's been hard on a lot of people. Lord, you know their struggles, and will you be there for them
Right.
and with them? Like, especially when we pray prayers where we know the Lord already knows what we need before he asks him, right? That's
Yeah.
when Jesus talks about the Lord's Prayer. So if the Lord already knows, we don't have to inform him. So when we're praying out loud, it's to inform others.
Right.
And it's like, why do they need to be informed? Like, tell them that, hey, so and so, they're not, they're not in the best shape. So pray for them. Oh, well,
Yeah.
why aren't, well, what's going on? Hey,
And that's the other thing
yeah,
too.
well, they're
That's
not in the best
fishing for
shape. Pray for
gossip.
them. Yeah, well, they're not in the best shape. Be praying for them.
Yeah.
Like, God, like that's why, like elders prayer meeting. I have one tomorrow night. I'm telling you, it's going to be like some things. Like it's not like, oh, have you heard about so and so? We need to pray for them. Like I'm going to try to like take what I'm doing right now and do it tomorrow, and just be like, hey, you just gotta trust me. This so and so, a lot going on,
Yeah.
a lot. And they just need us to be praying for them, and the Lord knows what they need.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm putting the cart before the horse, already trying to apply it. But
Right.
it's like,
No, 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 absolutely. That's where we're
but
at.
it's
And
prayer. Like prayers, like sometimes potluck, sometimes just normal talking. But prayer, it is vicious, dude. It is sneaky.
and you could not be gossiping. So you could say, "Hey, you know, I need you to pray. There's something going on with my family. I don't really want to talk about it too much, but I need prayer."
Right.
Or maybe you don't disclose that. You're just like, "Hey, I just need you to pray for my family." And then the person's like, "Oh, what's going on?" You know? And so that could be fishing for gossip. Now you might follow it up. I don't really want to disclose. I don't really want to talk about it, but
Right.
I just need prayer. Um, you should stop there, right? And say, yeah, absolutely. Let me pray. God definitely knows what's going on. I'm gonna give a kind of general prayer for you. But you can be fishing for gossip through prayer as well. It's like, oh, I need a name, or I just need to know
Yeah.
what's going on so I know more how to pray. You don't need that information, actually.
No.
You really don't. You can pray without it. It is helpful. Like I prefer to know who I'm talking about and what the situation is. But if someone comes to me and they feel uncomfortable, they don't want to disclose it. Hey, that's where that line ends. We are We do not need them to take all the steps we desire for our prayers to be effective and for us to be able to pray. We can pray for someone wherever they're at.
Yeah,
So
like,
we
well, I
just
mean,
don't
as
want to be
pastors,
fishing
we,
either
yeah,
for a
don't
gossip.
fish. Well,
Yeah,
and I think sorry, I talked over you, but it's like,
you're good.
as pastors, we don't, like, it does bug me if there are pastors that fish, because, like, as a pastor, I don't have to fish.
Hmm.
Like, I don't have to.
Right.
People trust me. They share with me. Like, you
Right,
have one,
because we're
like,
their
it's one of
pastors.
two
Yeah.
people, right? It's like you have maybe the one individual that's like, I'm so embarrassed. I can't imagine if my pastor found out. And I don't like that, because it makes us sound like we're a Pharisee, and it's like,
Yeah.
if you tell me, it's like banished. It's like it's
Like
like I'm just a
I'm gonna
guy.
be disappointed, but
Well,
I want you to grow. I want you to get back on stable footing. I want you to grow into the image
right,
of Christ. Yes, I'm
100%.
I'm disappointed that you've backslidden. I'm disappointed in what you may have sinned with. But my desire is for you to grow. So I'm happy if you come to me because I want to see you continuing on in your
Right.
journey with Christ. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I've seen that side, but then I also have the other side, where it's like, man, like, you didn't have to tell me all that, you know. Um, and it's like, yeah, like, I would have been fine with the please pray for my family this holiday.
Yeah,
uh, and you get all the dirty laundry, and
yeah,
and it's like, hey, the Lord can wash every shade, but
yeah.
but you're still trying to, like, hey, then now I have to watch myself,
Hmm.
that, like, I don't overshare, uh, uh, and because some information is fine. Like, when I'm telling my elders, like, hey, so and so got hurt, they're at this hospital if you want to visit them. No one's
Hmm.
going to be like, why'd you tell people I was in the hospital? If they told me not to and I did it, that's messed up. But that's kind of like one of those lines where it's like, is that gossip? Like, because I told my elders, hey, if you want to visit a congregant in the hospital, you know. But it is one of those things where, like, that's all I talk about on Sunday mornings, and I tell every congregant, and then I put it during the prayer time where we're like, and pray for so and so in the hospital because they had to get their stomach pumped because they partied too hard, and like
That's funny.
no, like, Lord, pray for so and so who's not feeling well and had to go to the hospital.
Hmm.
Like, the Lord knows. Like, and that is enough for people to be able to pray for them. It
Yeah,
really is. Like, I love you already said that, and now we're kind of talking about prayer, but it's because that's where it really happens. Like,
yeah.
that's where I see it happen. It's it it's not always just you're leaning by your car, you set your Bible down on the hood, and you go, okay, hey, before I see you next week,
Yeah.
let me leave you with this. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it's not, all, but it is messed up when I like potlucks or stuff like that too, where you're just
Hmm.
trying to get through Sunday service because you can't wait to get to the potluck so you can you know, talk to so and so about what another person did. Like,
Yeah.
that week.
And
It's like the excitement to bring bad news again.
yeah, I'll say this for our viewers. This is kind of the last thing that I really have on this, and it's if you're part of like a Bible study or a prayer meeting or anything like that, and you've noticed that your prayer meeting or Bible study or whatever it might be, small groups, is kind of engaging in that, feel free to call them out on it.
Oh
And
yeah.
maybe not one particular person. You can just sort of call out. We can call maybe the vibe, so to speak, or maybe the tone or the atmosphere. You can really just call out like, hey guys, I'm not calling any one particular person out, but I just feel like we've been engaging, a little bit in gossip. Like we're talking about people that aren't here. And I'm not saying that's what happened with the person that just said it, but I just feel like we're kind of going that way. and I
Hmm.
think we should just be smart about what we're bringing to the table for prayer, what we're
Yeah.
bringing to the table and what we talk about, because I just don't want to like fall into that. I'm reading
Yeah.
through my
Brother
Bible.
Chad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm reading through
I'm
my
just kidding.
Bible. I'm reminded of gossip, and I just want us to be a place where it's safe, our information is safe, and if someone comes in, that their dirty laundry, so to speak, has not already been aired to us all. Um, so you can call out your prayer meeting or Bible study or something like that, and that's for their
Tough love.
benefit.
Yeah.
Um,
Tough love.
yeah. So I just want to leave people with that, just knowing that. You also don't want to be so sensitive where it's like, hey, my brother's going through something, like, oh, what gossip? You just,
Did I
told me about
ask
your
you?
brother. Don't be the one that's just so quick to to criticize. But if you do find that your prayer meeting or your Bible study is kind of engaging in that a bit, you should call it out,
Hmm.
because it is a practice that is not good. It's not good not only for them, it's not good for the people involved, but it's really not good for the body.
Yeah. It, well said. Yeah. 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 Don't go running out of here gossiping about the gossips.
Yeah,
They're
exactly,
such a gossip. It's like, well, you just did it.
exactly.
uh, um, but I think a great way to like, yeah, let's wrap it up. Um, other than just being like, hey, don't do that.
Right.
um, like, so I think we really just, man, we've had the Proverbs, like the whole Bible's God's word and it's Jesus's words. But the Proverbs talk about it. We have Jesus's words in Matthew. We have the words of James, the half brother of Jesus. That means something, right? It's all scripture. And also Paul. Paul writing a second, well, third letter, depending on who you're talking. But writing the second letter to the Corinthians uh, about, there's a lot going on at the Church of Corinth. They needed two letters. What does that tell you? Um, and of all the things that he listed, slander and gossip were there. And if we know that it has happened, and even if the church is not immune, so like what can we do to combat this? How do we put a nice bow on this? I think you can really determine, like, gossip is when you want to be the bearer of bad news behind someone's back out of a bad heart.
Hmm.
So I really I want you to hear this: bad news, bad heart,
Yeah.
and behind someone's back. Not to their face. That's bad too. Bad news, bad heart to someone's face is also bad.
Yeah.
but, but really behind their, so bad news, bad heart. And what I mean by bad news is information that does not build them up, whether it's true or not. I don't care if it's true. You hear me? Like, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Don't spread negative information about someone behind their taught, behind their back. Even if you've been taught, if it's true, it's not gossip. That nope,
No,
false. If it's
it's true. It
true,
is gossip.
it can still be gossip. Exactly. Um, so we don't want to bear bad news. Uh, and 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 then maybe even here, like, what do I mean by behind someone's back? It's like, oh, they're in the same room, they just can't hear me. like, like if I just whisper,
Without their knowledge.
yes, exactly. It can be so hidden. We even talked about how it hides itself in prayer. And so I think a good question to ask, like, and this goes maybe not a vow of silence, as you said, but when you ask these questions of yourself, it forces you to stop and think before you open your big yapper. and and so ask yourself these questions. Would I be telling this story if they were here?
Hmm.
Why or why not? Am I hiding this conversation from anyone? Am I ashamed of it? Like, would I be ashamed if someone found out that I was talking about it? Like, sometimes we don't even care if we're spreading bad news about someone, but we care if we get caught spreading the bad news. And you don't want to be, yeah, you don't want to be
Yeah.
that guy. You know what? And this is a big one where you want to treat others the way you want to be treated. Would you want someone else to talk this way about you if you weren't in the room? If it's a no,
Hmm.
that's instant. Like, I'm gonna gossip if I do it. Because we really want to embody what Matthew 12:33 through 37, right? To like, that's kind of like the bad news. Don't do it behind someone's back. I know I'm kind of plowing through it, but and with a bad heart. Matthew 12, really, Jesus talks about it's out of a bad heart, an evil heart, that you see that evil treasure. And so out of the mouth, the heart speaks. And so, you know, that's where when we did our murder versus killing episode, remember when we talked about intent? That's what determines whether it's like murder or manslaughter,
Right.
And so like, how do I determine if this is just information or gossip? Well, let's look at the intent, the bad heart. Ask yourself, why am I saying this? Is it because I love this person or because I don't? Because
Hmm.
I want what's best for them or because I want what's best for me? Uh, are these words loving towards the person I'm talking to? Are they loving towards the person that we're talking about? It's an interesting question. Are these words loving toward the person I'm talking to? Do I
Mm.
respect the person that I'm spreading this information with? If I love them, why would I want to give them this information? You know, it's like, why would I do it to the person I'm communicating to, let alone the person I'm communicating about? It's an
Yeah.
interesting question. Care about the person you're talking to as much as the person that might not be in the room.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, all three are made in the image of God.
Yes, yes. Care about like I don't know, like care about yourself, but like care about how you Matthew 12:36-37. Every careless word.
Hmm.
I care about my standing before the Lord. Like, I'm not going to do it for me.
I mean, that's a
Like,
scary thought.
yeah,
Every
it is.
careless word. I am held
Yeah, I'm done for.
responsible for every syllable.
Yep. I'm supposed to praise
I'm
my God and Father.
responsible for the period, the question mark, and the exclamation point.
Yeah, every dot and iota. What you say, iota?
It's like how, well, I mean, it's just how I say it too.
Mm-hmm.
How I communicate. I'm responsible for that. And so the information that I've been entrusted to and the information I'm disclosing and who I'm disclosing it to, I am responsible for that. And not only that, I'm also responsible for the repercussions or the consequences that come from that. I
Yeah.
can't put that toothpaste back into the bottle, but I might have created a mess that I can never undo, right? Because it's harder to bring all that gossip and correct it than to spread it. And so you really want to be wise when you speak, and you really want to be someone that just is not a gossiper. And when people try and engage with you, did you hear so and so? I'm not really interested in, you know, talking about other people's business. That's a great way to shut down someone who
Dude, and
is a
shut it
gossiper.
down.
And then also, as I said, especially with, I mean, people that do like to gossip, birds of a feather. They really do like to stick together. I didn't mean to Dr. Seuss that, but, uh, but,
Nice.
but,
Can you believe Mike is like Dr. Seuss?
but but like if you do shut someone down, they likely won't talk to you, and you kind of weed out people in your lives that are gossipers by doing that. So
Hmm.
you can really help in the weeding that out of the congregation and even in your life by being that type of person. Oh, so and so was talking to this person. I'm not a person that you know likes to gossip, and I'm not a person that's in people's business.
It's not me, man.
You can just keep that to yourself if you want.
No, actually, you can tell other people that I'm not into gossiping. You can gossip about that. I'll let you gossip about that. Tell them like Mike and Dave that they don't like hearing gossip. It's like,
That's
did he
hilarious.
just say like what? Just kidding. But like, it's so true, dude.
Yeah.
Like, shut it down. Like, I'm not about that.
Hmm.
Like, and trust me, there's a lot of other things that you might have to focus on or worry about or you struggle with, but like, you know, um, I don't want it to be gossip, right? That is sneaky, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of sins that we can do, but like, that we can do in the darkness. But we also learn, what is done in darkness will be brought to light.
Right.
Hey, and I know you're like, that's not to shame you or condemn you. Like, hey,
Hmm.
what you're hiding, we're gonna know about it eventually. It, no, it's just, hey, like the Lord is omniscient. He knows everything. He
Yeah.
sees everything. And a day is coming where, like I said, we will be found in the righteousness of Christ. But when you know better, when we have this information now, where it's like, hey, I'm a Christian. The Lord calls me to a higher standard, a better standard of living, really the standard of true living, of how I actually am supposed to respect someone else, made in the image of the Lord, how we're supposed to have holy conversation. Um, and whether it's, even false information, especially not false, even if it's true information when
Hmm.
they're not around or without their permission. And that's the good news, I think, of this whole thing. We're talking about gossip, talking about being a gossip, gossiping. You don't have to be a gossip. Just like you don't have to be an adulterer. You don't have to be a liar. You don't have to be a slanderer or a gossip. I know we might still, on this side of heaven, be tempted to do those things. But when you are in Christ, and we now have the power of God, the same power that rose Jesus from the dead, the Holy Spirit living in us, we can do something now. Like we can beat it.
Yeah.
If we don't, grace, and we don't want to make a habit of it. But it's not because we can't now.
Right.
There is no power in sin or death because of the work of Christ. Even power over gossiping and what we say or don't say.
Yeah.
That's all
I
I
think
got.
no, I think that's perfect. Honestly, I think you really brought it to a conclusion there.
Sorry.
I think no, I think that was
First try.
I think that was the perfect way to end there. And so I'm just gonna say, folks, I hope this was really encouraging for you. If you do find yourself convicted by this podcast,
All the gossips like it.
I mean, if you right,
Sorry.
if you do feel convicted by this, just rest assured that you still have breath in your lungs and there's still time, and so you can we're all still on the journey. We all have our own sins that we struggle with, and this might be yours. And this is a journey for you to be on. We've given you a few different and we gave you some advice on how to kind of conform your life to Christ. And so we just really hope that this was a stimulating conversation for you, that this is something that will kind of propel you forward in your life with Christ. And all that being said, yes, like, share, subscribe. Don't forget to let us know what you thought about in the comments. Leave all that juicy tea and gossip down in the comments. I'm just kidding.
Gosh.
But yeah,
Gosh.
we really enjoy having these episodes and this podcast with you. You guys are the reason why we do it, and we love you. So we're just gonna
It's
go ahead
true.
and end it right here, and we will catch you guys in the next episode.
Peace.